I want to start with a quote from Aaron Carmel, who is a professor at American University, and actually he's not at all active in the Agile field or Agile environment, but he is, to my understanding, he's really the person you should refer to if you want to know anything that's happening or working or is successful or not successful in global or distributed teams. So he has examined a lot of distributed projects and talked to many people and found out what are the key success factors or what are the key problems for a global team, what helps them to be successful and what not. And the thing that, at least for me, extracts this the best is this quote where he says that creating an effective global team from multiple sides involves several key success factors. The first one is building trust, then encouraging open communication, building personal relationships, and bridging cultural differences. So again, this has all nothing to do really with technology. And on the other hand, it might have to do a little bit with Agile because all of these things are in the major focus of Agile development. If you take a look at the Agile principles, which are actually, well, maybe kind of the hidden side of the Agile Manifesto, I guess most of the people in the audience have seen the Agile Manifesto before, so if you haven't, you can go to the website, which is agilemanifesto.org. And if you go there to the next page, so not stay with the front page, then you come further on to the Agile principles. And if you look at those, then you will find out that, well, what is actually in the focus of Agile development are things like, well, if you take a look at this slide in the middle, we have like trust-motivated individuals. And Aaron Carmel was talking about trust, or face-to-face conversation, that this is something important. And Aaron Carmel was talking about building personal relationships. So things like that are really in the focus of Agile development, and therefore, this is at least my belief, Agile helps if you want to be successful with a distributed team. So it's maybe not as most people would think that global development is easier without Agile development. It's actually the other way around. That's my absolute belief, that Agile development will only help you to be successful in a distributed setting. Okay, I want to focus on these key points Aaron Carmel was pointing out and referring them back to the Agile principles and look at it, what it means if we apply that in Agile setting. And I do that by speaking from the experience I have with different distributed Agile projects. So the first thing I want to focus on, building personal relationships via face-to-face meetings. Well, this can be a big discussion already because, well, in a distributed setting, if the project is really spread over the whole globe, then you might think face-to-face is not really happening anymore. However, the point is, if you want to have a trusted relationship within your team, you have to acknowledge that trust needs touch, meaning that face-to-face meetings are necessary and you cannot really omit them. So you have to make a possibility, create a possibility for people to meet at least from time to time. And the frequency and the duration for those face-to-face meetings, they depend on the distance between the different people. So I just give some examples. So the typical thing that we do in our projects, that we have more and longer meetings, face-to-face meetings at the beginning of the project. So the typical thing is that we have like a kickoff where everyone gets together at one side, and we have like, let's say about 3 iterations we spend together at one side, and so people get to know each other. So that's one way how you can start. Another thing is that you can do like, well, a couple of days every week. This is, forth, in quotes, only possible if the distance is not too big. For example, I have been working in one distributed project which was more distributed in Europe, so it was Central and Eastern Europe, where the headquarters was in Austria, and then we had some teams in Hungary, in the Czech Republic, and I believe in Poland, and this is all kind of close by. And therefore, for that setting, it was even possible for people traveling back and forth every week. This is not possible if the distance is bigger, of course. So, for example, if you're more talking about not onshoring, as this example was, but more offshoring, or even if we stay on the same continent, for example, if we have the UK in the same setting and on board, then you might not think about traveling back and forth every week or so. This might still work out. But then you think more about meeting face-to-face for specific events, for example. It can be with every iteration, so that the ending, the closure of the iteration and the planning for the next iteration is done together face-to-face, so retrospective and iteration planning. Or it can be by the end of the release and beginning of the next release, so that you have specific events where the whole team is getting together, or at least some of the people are getting together. I'm making this constraint with maybe some people because it depends very much on the size of the whole project. And another possibility, and this is more what we do if we really have a huge distance to bridge, for example, between the US and China. This is another project I've been working on. Then we do more implement face-to-face meetings in a way by having people rotating over the different sites. So we have a few people, for example, from China working in the States for several months, and vice versa, some Americans working in China for several months. So still we have the face-to-face thing, but it's on a completely different basis than, let's look at this other example I gave with a couple of days every week where the people from Hungary travel to Austria or the other way around. So again, depending on the distance between the sites involved, the frequency and duration of the face-to-face differs. However, no matter what's happening, you will need to put the face-to-face meetings in place. So there's no way of avoiding. Maybe I should quote here my good colleague Ken Pugh already, because he once came up with that cool quote saying, you have to pay for face-to-face meetings no matter if you have them or not. Meaning if you don't have them, you pay for them because you don't have trusted relationships within your team. Moving on from trust and to communication. So first of all, trust is based on mutual respect, and you will find out a lot of what I'm talking about goes back to this fact that mutual respect is a very important thing if you want to have an effective team in place in a distributed setting. So one of the things you can do is to watch out that whenever you do have a meeting where you think the project comes together, don't organize this meeting at the same location all the time, but instead use different meeting locations every time the people get together. So very often people think that the most obvious thing is that, well, there's the headquarters and just everyone from the other sites will travel to the headquarters when we do have a meeting. However, it's much more helpful if you meet at all the different sites involved.